Diatonic is one of those words that you might hear and be scared of. Sounds like a very confusing music theory thing. It's not at all. It's actually super helpful to know, and we're going to learn it today. So, diatonic, and in this case, we're going to be talking about diatonic chords, but really, just the word diatonic means from the key or from the scale. So, all you need to know for this is maybe one scale. C major works. Okay, so this scale here, these notes, this is when somebody says we're in a key, they mean that we can only play notes from this scale. So we're in the key of C, which means that we can only use notes from this scale. Okay? And now the fancy way of saying we can only use notes from the key of C is diatonic. So these notes are diatonic notes in the key of C. These are the notes that are in the scale C, so we call them diatonic. Now, if I play this note, or this note, or this note, or this note, or this note, none of these notes are diatonic to the key of C. So in the key of C, this is not a diatonic note. This is not a diatonic note. This is not a diatonic note. So that's all it means to be. When somebody says it's a diatonic note or a diatonic chord, they just mean that it's in the key or from the scale. Now, if you change scales, like let's say we go to the scale of B flat, that looks like this. Those are these notes. So now my diatonic notes are all of the ones that are blue right now, and anything else like this, that's not in here, so that's a non-diatonic note, that's a non-diatonic note. You get the point. Super easy concept, not as confusing as it sounds. Now, just knowing that isn't super helpful. What most people use diatonic, the term diatonic for, is the diatonic chords of a scale or a key. So if you're in the key of C and you play a C major chord, all these notes are diatonic. These are all within the key of C, right? Now, if I take this chord and I just move it up the scale, and I stay in the scale, meaning I'm not playing any notes that aren't from the C major scale, this gives me my diatonic chords. These are the chords you get from a scale using the notes of the scale. Why is that useful? Well, because we play songs most of the time in one key. Now, some songs might change keys, some songs might have some chords that are outside of the key, but for the most part, when we play a song, we play it in a key. Let's take something like Let It Be. All of those chords are in the key of C. These are all diatonic chords. Even if I'm using an inversion, these are all still notes from the key of C. So everything here is diatonic. Now, if you get to something like the bridge on that song where it goes, so you saw that right here, that B flat, that is not a diatonic chord in the key of C. So we would call that a non-diatonic chord, and we would say we just left the key of C for a second, okay? Now, this is useful to know, but what's even more useful to know is that all of the diatonic chords in every single major key are the same quality. Meaning, if I give the number 1 to the major chord, to C major, and I give a number 2, right, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, the 1 in every major key is always major. So if I change keys and I go to the key of F, and I play the 1 chord, the first chord of the scale, it's major. If I go to E flat, the 1 chord is major. If I go to A flat, the 1 chord is major. Okay? If I go to B flat, the 2 chord is always minor. Just like the 2 chord in C is always minor, and the 2 chord in F is always minor. The 1 chord is always major, The 2 chord is always minor. The 3 chord is always minor. The 4 chord is major. 5 is major. 6 is minor. 7 is diminished. You beginners, don't worry about diminished chords. These first 6 chords are super, super important to know. 1 major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor. Because every single major key has the same qualities for these 6 chords. And if you know that, it makes learning songs in new keys way easier. It makes learning new scales way easier. It makes writing songs way easier. Okay? And if you're not familiar with this Roman numeral style of writing, um, uppercase letters mean major, lowercase letters mean minor. And again, this little circle thing, sometimes you'll see it with a line through it. That means diminished. Don't worry too much about what a diminished chord means. But what you should really remember is the term diatonic means from the scale. And diatonic chords are the chords we get from a scale. So the diatonic chords of C major are the chords that are formed when we use notes in the scale. If we play a chord that has a note that's not in the C major scale, like E flat, for example, there's not an E flat or a B flat in a C major scale. This is a non-diatonic chord, and we have just left the key of C. All right? And what's really important to remember is that all major keys have the same qualities for their diatonic chords. Now, memorizing that is super helpful. You don't need to memorize the diatonic chords for each key because you can just remember what the 1 is, what the 2 is, what the 3 is, etc., etc. Okay? Hope this clears some things up for you. I know music theory can be tough, but there's a few things in music theory that are worth learning and memorizing. This is definitely one of them. So good luck to you. Comment if you have any questions.